Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's truly a joy to join with all of you this day in community. Let us join together in prayer, inviting and welcoming the Queen of Shabbat, the Holy Shekinah, the divine presence and power to be here with us. Elohim, Yahweh, 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 Elohim. Yeshua, Yeshua, Yeshua. Uranai, Uranai, expanding an infinite directionality in you, Holy One of Being. We come this day in this awareness of our spaciousness, our infinite expansion throughout all directionality, throughout all worlds, realms, and universes. We come today to join with you in the bridal chamber, uniting all opposites, arising as a human one of light in remembrance of the divine I am. And we pray this day, this awareness goes out amidst the people and the land, joining all together, that all may rise up in this pure joy and delight in union with you in the bridal chamber. That this light may go out, dissolving lack, doubt, fears. That this light may go out, strengthening faith amidst the people and the land. That many rise up this day in this praise and thanksgiving, in joy and abundance of all that you give, amen and amen.
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 Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom to all of you. This day, there's a calling to look into a certain mystery. We were pointing to this last week as we spoke of being awake, keep awake, and we looked at the I being single, this singularity. And it naturally, through the week, led to a contemplation that stirred very deeply in the heart this morning of mysteries of what it means to be solitary. Gospel of Thomas, verse 75, reads, "Many are standing at the door, but it is the solitary and the elect who will enter the bridal chamber." Many are standing at the door, but it is the solitary and elect who will enter the bridal chamber. You know, right off contemplating this verse, I watched it actually, in a certain sense, contradict itself. Because I thought, bridal chamber, we're talking about entrance into bridal chamber here. And bridal chamber really is this mystery of joining all things, joining body and soul, above with below, body and blood, presence and essence. We could say our being and our life display, being and becoming. So this whole realm of opposites here comes together in the bridal chamber, this place of union. And what I mean by contradictory is the word solitary seems to point to this one space. Even to say solitary and elect, we could say set apart. So there's this kind of individual idea and this inclusiveness presented in this verse. Individual in the sense of solitary. So we know in teachings, anytime we talk about being solitary, we are really pointing to being an authentic, genuine, unique expression, drawing out and expressing our unique individual essence. Truly, though, this must expand in meaning. If there's a discussion here that the solitary, these who are willing to fully come in to who they are as they are in God, are the ones that actually enter the door, walk through the door, and enter the bridal chamber. Now, that must mean to be a truly authentic, genuine human being, who we truly are, there must be some sort of inclusiveness involved. There must be some kind of expansion of self to include. So not so much set aside, but expansive. Consider the idea of elect. It is very important to never consider elect as being any kind of hierarchy We're never talking about that. The chosen or the elect. In fact, when we say this, we're talking about something akin to an older sibling, one who has a genuine interest in protecting and guarding the younger sibling, who might know through experience things like why you don't put your hand in the flame of a candle, or these things that a younger sibling might not know. So an older sibling really means one who is responsible, who takes this responsibility upon themselves to guide and guard and protect and nurture a younger sibling. So we're not talking about special and as in chosen or elect. So solitary and elect, this verse says these are one and the same. So solitary, how we become this unique expression of the one must have something to do with how we expand to include others in our unique way, in our unique expression of this. Last week, we talked about the verse from Deuteronomy that says, Yahweh is Elohim in heaven and earth. There is no other. So think of this expansiveness, this inclusion of no other as being solitary. And this is one who enters the door. This is one who, let's say, joins together, realizes that this experience being had now is the experience we're seeking. One who realizes there isn't lack. In fact, our discussion last week on keeping awake, well, there is part of us in our inmost being that's never fell asleep. In fact, there is part of us that exists in this continuum of being all of the time. Keeping awake is simply a reminder in our continuum of coming into being, yes, there will be times we need to return to the remembrance of being solitary. And this is very affirming because it says we're lacking nothing. And it says that we each have this opportunity today, at any given moment, to enter the bridal chamber, to join these opposites, to come into a dissolution of the illusion of lack and separation. That truly, it doesn't really exist. Now, this also reminds me of where Yeshua says, deny yourself. Take up your cross and follow me. Oh, so deny the self that might close off, close down, create walls, prohibit or limit this expansive quality of inclusion. Deny these things. Take up your cross. here I was reminded in the Acts of John, and the story of the revelation of the cross, which is this very powerful exploration of what cross is. At one point, Yeshua speaks, this cross is that which unites all things, which compacts all things into one. No, join that with deny yourself, take up your cross. Cross, that which unites all things, that which joins all things into one. So, Yahweh is Elohim. There is no other. Yahweh, we know this singularity. Elohim, one manifest as many, never leaving the singularity. Somehow in a mystery. This is how all of creation comes into being. We know Elohim is the divine name with which God creates in Genesis. So this expansion of apparently many, never leaving the singularity. This is Yahweh pronounced as Elohim. Yahweh is Elohim. There is no other. So this is this solitary. You know, Tal Malachi speaks this beautiful truth often, that one of the deepest fears here we can encounter is the fear of being alone. And he will say, when we go deep into this fear, there's truth to this. Because the fact is, God is alone. So the more we come into this unification with the one and many as the one, the more we will recognize this aloneness. There is no other. Yet, in the illusion of lack and separation, this fear of alone can, as we all very well know, can become something very different. It might cut off or shut away or really create this false illusion of being alone, because there is no other. There is just God. So there's truth to that fear. Very curious. Now, also, something in this verse strikes me. Many are standing at the door. Now, we spoke last time. This is a mystery we hear often in tradition, and it is something we want to deeply contemplate. The idea that as there is this progressive development of consciousness beyond the body, we speak of this of development of the body of light, a expansion of self, and that which we identify with. At the same time, there is this progressive consciousness or progressive awareness, presence of awareness that develops in body. So as we expand beyond, we expand within. And this is a awareness that really begins to bring lucidity and transitions between waking consciousness, sleeping. Even through our day, imagine all the transitions we go through. Imagine every single doorway you walk through. And how sometimes you walk through one doorway and it's as though you've entered a completely different world. And you walk out of that door into another space and it's a completely different world. So it's not just in dream time this is happening or the difference between waking or dreaming. No, this is constantly happening. We are transitional beings. We are always in transition, right? When are we not? Right here and right now. We are in transition, moving through our discourse. Then we will move through our day, and every moment is a moment of transition. So we're talking about lucidity through transitions. Do you hear solitary, encompassing? Curious they would bring up door here. That many are standing at the door. The solitary and elect are the ones who enter the door to the bridal chamber. I wonder if this is a door that is not a door. Meaning, a lucidity of no door, a presence of awareness that we walk with throughout all spaces, unmoved and yet moved by the spaces we're walking into. I think this is how we express our authentic being, the truth of who we are. The truth of who we are somehow does maintain a unique expression throughout all transitions. See, when we get lost in something we're not or in other, it's simply we've lost that authentic expression. Maybe we've gotten influenced by the space we just walked into. We see this happen in dream a lot. We enter into a certain space and maybe we forget where we were before and where we are going, and all of a sudden it's its own reality that arises. So solitary, elect, is very grounded too. To feel the grounding in being a unique, you could say self-contained, meaning not moved this way or that way by outside circumstances. Maintaining a centered throughout all experiences, situations, circumstances, and events. I wonder too then, is this what allows us to walk through the door into the bridal chamber? What is the bridal chamber in this context? This place of centeredness. This place of joining inside and out, maybe the door somewhat disappears. You know, it's interesting. It reminds me of certain breath practices in the tradition, where we practice breathing into the gap. And we practice focusing on the gap between inhalation and exhalation. And the more we get into this, it sometimes can be as though the gap expands to include the inhalation and exhalation. This kind of happens in meditation too, right? We sit, we can watch these thoughts move through mind endlessly. And the more we sit with us, and the more spacious and expansive we become. Oh, the thoughts become like clouds moving in the sky. But all the while, there is this sky-like nature that the clouds move within. And it's not so much in attaching and in being taken up by this cloud or that cloud, this thought or that thought. More abiding in the sky, as the sky and these things arise, move across the sky, one after the next. But we identify with the sky. Is this solitary and elect? Solitary in meaning, do you hear the unity in the sky? The sky is this nature that unifies all things. This oneness. The clouds simply move through. That is very much like our experience of reality here, isn't it? One space into the next space, into the next space, within and behind, always this infinite spaciousness that contains all, that all in a mystery is arising from and dissolving into. Bridal chamber. This place of meeting and union. I think I will pause there. I'm curious how this stirs you and what moves you in this contemplation or any other contemplation you may be having this day.
Then I'll hop on, Elder Sarah. I have to continue with the vein that you've begun. Solitary reminds me in Hebrew of Yahid, like the only child of a parent. And Yahid, the only one, the most beloved, so to speak, is also how we derive this inmost part of the soul, Yechidah, this spark of absolute uniqueness from the interiors of the Holy One. So holy, we learn that not even archangels can enter this inmost unique spark. How do you hear that?
Wow. So, only begotten Son is pointing to Yahida? In what you're saying, I hear, brother?
That's right.
Wow. Oh, this sure says a lot about Messiah, doesn't it? This is my only begotten Son, the one in whom I am very pleased. Does Yeshua, in this revelation of Messiah, through him, as him, is he encompassing this fullness of all as we are speaking in terms of solitary and elect? You know, he kind of gets at it in Matthew when he discusses the judgment of the nations, and the judgment is this, you know, you who nurtured me when I was sick, or when I came knocking on your door and was hungry, you fed me, or I was in prison and you came to visit me. And then the judgment is those who did not open the door when he came knocking, did not go and visit in prison, did not tend to the sick, did not give clothes to the naked. And they say, well, Lord, when did you come knocking on the door hungry? When were you sick? When were you in prison? He pretty much says, well, I am all of these. Inclusive. That's the beautiful mystery. And so that it ties with this inmost part, this unique essence of soul, is very curious to me. At what point in the parts of the soul is there this... Actually, I'll reword this. In the interior parts of the soul, aren't these interconnected with soul of souls, one soul? Only in the Shama, in the Fesh, really is there this idea of something separate from, I suppose, outer parts of Ruach. So the deeper we go inward, the more expansive in unification with one soul. This is truly how Yeshua can forgive on the cross. They do not know what they're doing. And how it is said at that moment, he takes on the entirety of the world and this forgiveness, because he is identifying with, or hasn't forgotten, comes into this unification with all. That's where you can't separate out solitary and elect from the bridal chamber, because talk about an elder sibling in terms of Yeshua and what we see in Messiah.
Also, speaking of Hebrew, I'm contemplating the letter Tau as a cross. I was just contemplating this week, and that grounding earth element of Tau, and the sign of initiation upon one's brow is this constant reminder of this solitary, as though we are reminded of living this as we take up this initiation.
Very well said. Thank you, brother. Yes, I like that you say grounded. Here, fully here, present with. Isn't that what makes an authentic human being? One who is completely present, grounded here and now. And your image, this sign of the cross upon the brow, to me, that always has such an expansive insinuation, because we know in our study of Kabbalah that in each direction comes back on itself. The Sefer Yetzirah speaks of directionality, the 6 directions that make up space as we experience, as being depths. Depth of beginning, depth of end, depth of east, of west, of south, of north, above and below. And depth means eventually they come back to one another. And the sign of the cross always says this to me. This expansiveness, yet presentness. Because think of cross too. Was just exploring this mystery with Elder Gideon recently, and the idea of equal arm cross, and that where the vertical and the horizontal lines merge is almost like a knot in fabric that creates this vast weave of tapestry. So each place of union is very curious. It's as though, talk about consciousness coming into body, at the same time expansiveness beyond. There's this point of union and this expansion, all in this symbol of cross. And this is our anointing. Solitary and elect. Yes, beautiful.
I was contemplating Elder Sarah, and it totally relates to what Gideon and Brother Christopher shared about how you were speaking about the line, deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. And I heard it in a really new way when you were speaking about it today, where I realized that it brings together, we can experience these things that we might call karma in our lives, or we can experience these things called tekunim, healings in our lives. And sometimes we have these lifetime tekunims that we come to over and over and over and over and over again. And Tao has shared in the past a lot that that these tekunim are not just for ourselves, but for all of humanity. And the deny yourself part to me was saying, understand that this is not just you. Understand that this is not personal. It is, but it isn't. And then the take up your cross and follow me, take up your cross is yes, but take this up fully. Do not deny that pain, suffering, and terrible things happen, but take up that cross. Be like, move into the grief, move into the suffering. Just like Yeshua did at the cross. He asked the Father, is there any way that this cannot happen? And basically the answer was no. You have to move through this in order to show the resurrection, to put on this resurrection body. And it reminds me a lot of what Brother Christopher was saying about the symbol of the cross.
Well said. Very well said. You know, you make me think of in that moment when Yeshua says, Father, you know, is there any way this cup can be taken from me? And as you said, no, this is your cup. You get a feeling that at a certain point where Yeshua says, Father, why have you forsaken me? And then there's this shift, and he fully takes it up, endures the pain and the suffering. And as you said, comes into it fully. Yes, there's this kind of, not sure, Father, anyway, why have you forsaken me? Yes, we're not denying that. There's a very human side to that, but who can imagine? But then fully moves into it, present in it, and something changes through that presentness that I hear you drawing out. So deny yourself. Maybe these are the concepts of what it will look like or what it will be or what we think it will turn out as. Deny all of those things and take up this unity, as was said. I'm curious that in the Acts of John, there's this entire discussion that Yeshua, as he's speaking with John in the cave there, mind you, while the crucifixion is happening, okay, on the wooden cross below, there's this revelation of the cross of light to John. And Yeshua begins to speak this very intriguing mystery that I am suffering, yet I'm not suffering. You see me on the cross, yes, there is suffering, but there is not at the same time. Feel that kind of that play of, it doesn't mean things won't be painful here or hurt or be difficult, but if we fully get grounded into them, take them up, present, is that the not suffering, while suffering he's referring to?
I so heard this, especially in what Malachi has been teaching in the Oneness teachings, because solitary reminds me of a person that has lived on the outside for a very long time and has got tired of being affected by circumstances outside of oneself, of events outside of oneself, and being moved by them. And these oneness teachings talk about, well, not from the outside, from the inside. Being an insider, we hear as God, we see as God, we know as God. And it's so simple, we miss it. And I loved your speaking about entering the gap between breaths is like finding a gate, because it kind of reminds me of, on the outsider is always experiencing reality in a predictable manner as they predict it to be. But an insider will start to see other realities, other opportunities to enter into this deep mystical experience in one. So I'm just hearing Malachi's very grounded teachings in this idea of solitary.
Thank you for that. You're so right. It's so simple we miss it. It's in plain sight. And we tend to always look for it in a different package, something it's not. It is that simple. And the oneness teachings are pointing to the simplicity. Solitary is pointing to the simplicity. And in terms of the breath piece, and like you said, being moved by the winds of the outside. Yes, so important to become the insider, because it doesn't mean the winds will necessarily stop. We're not talking about that. Rather, if one abides in the gap, then it won't be as though one is being breathed out by life. You know, that feeling of pushed out, or this wind of being pushed around, tossed and turned, or breathed in. We're talking about these winds and movements that we can get so taken up by. But yes, you are correct. At a certain point in life, we just get tired of it. And that's the freedom. And Yeshua saying, deny yourself. Take up your cross and follow me. Malachi's been getting at this in teachings of just be and just do. No drama, no what ifs, what about, oh, but not, I don't have this or that, or oh, I first need to go do this or that, all this. Nope, simple, be and do. Deny yourself. Take up your cross and follow. Come from the inside. The spacious, radiant awareness.
I was thinking of, because it's pointing to become this unique essence that only you are. And through this is where the unity is recognized. And early on, that uniqueness that is just mine is so simple, so close, that I don't even see it. And it can't be that, because it's too easy. You know, so there's looking all over for what it is, and it's right there all the while and not seen. And that seems to be a big part of accepting self, because we can't see it until we can accept self fully. And
so well said. We are not practicing to attain something we don't have. We're practicing to accept who we are, as God has made us. And here's the funny thing. This has been with us all the while, since we were little children. I think this essence has been circling and revealing itself constantly. But, yes, as you say, we get so habituated to looking for it outside of ourselves, we don't see it. Or we see it but don't know we've seen it. It's kind of like the example Tao likes to use of an athlete coming into the zone. Where you'll hear of Olympian athletes kind of coming into this space where it just happens naturally and spontaneously. And they walk away from it kind of, when it first happens, I can imagine, a little bit surprised of, whoa, that wasn't even me. That just happened. I didn't do anything. Just transpired. What if this expression of self is happening more than we notice? It's in those moments of pure joy and bliss and delight. It's in those moments where we're just taken up in what we're doing, so much so that there's no other thought in the mind. I think they pervade consciousness more than we like to notice. Deny yourself and take up your cross. Follow me, is saying, set down the problems, set down the ideas of lack, and just be and do.
I have a question about Yeshua on the cross when he's saying, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? Eloi, Eloi. I can't remember. Because initially I thought, well, is that the only begotten Son forgetting that there is no place that God isn't? Is that Yeshua, the Moshiach, the eldest, the firstborn, only begotten Son, forgetting God? And then I thought, well, he's also saying, as you brought up, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And then I thought, well, perhaps Yeshua was so connected to the kingdom, all of us, like so unified, that he was speaking for us. And, maybe speaking how the world has forgotten the unity, how the world has forsaken them. The people of the world have lost themselves in the world. So I wondered if you might respond to that.
Yes, beautiful question. Tao taught on this recently, and it was very helpful to me. There's a verse in Philip that discusses it. It quotes the same statement. It's a different translation saying, "Why have you abandoned me? Father, Father, why have you abandoned me?" And then it says, "He said this, but not from that place." And the teaching that Tao shares is, this is getting at, yes, a very human quality. That statement is an expression of the pain, the suffering in the flesh that is inevitable in such a moment. But that they say he said this, but not from that place, meaning he also was identified with a different space, yet not denying this surface experience at the same time. So it's a good lesson to all of us because, yes, you are correct. How can Messiah be Messiah if not but to encompass and become part of all of our experiences. This is where we have to be very careful of thinking Yeshua was, this born enlightened master out of his mother's womb and came, never experienced any hardship of the human existence, a human experience here. We hear also in the Garden of Gethsemane, he was sweating blood, which means that's a very, very, very stressed out space for a body, for that experience to happen. So something about the dimensionality of the experience being expressed. And as Brother Christopher was sharing, the groundedness of the experience. I suffered, but I did not suffer. Do you hear he said this, but he said that, but not from this place? He's still, no, I don't think forgot, but that's a moment showing and revealing that there are many, many dimensions of self existing simultaneous. So a very valuable lesson, because it kind of reminds me of the story of the rabbi who's dying, and his disciples come and he's crying, and they're surprised that he's crying in moments of death. Like, but you're enlightened, or you are a master. How could you be crying upon facing death? He basically says, well, there will never be another one of me. This unique expression, this unique incarnation will never exist again. He was saddened by that. It didn't mean he wasn't accomplished or hadn't come into being. No, just embracing and accepting this very human side.
Nefesh.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Nefesh Bahamut, Nefesh Elokit. It seems like Nefesh is connected to the flesh, and it's a part of us. It's a part of the totality. So we must embrace this, and that's how I see it too, as far as Yeshua demonstrating our humanity. And as Elder Gideon was saying, with before we got started with the discourse, speaking about the intelligence of the heart and that emotional quality, to allow oneself to cry is to unify yourself, to feel for another, to have empathy. Thank you.
Very much. It is said some of the most powerful prayer can be prayers of tears, because it gets us out of the words and thought and thinking, and that pure space of feeling. Very much so. And connects us to others deeply.
I'm particularly enjoying the connection I heard in Discourse between solitary and mindfulness in what was said about the sky abiding the clouds. There's some, from what I've encountered too, there's actually some, on that subject, there's some great psychology to show that people report much greater happiness and satisfaction the more that individual moments are engaged solitary or at once and not sort of muddled by comparing to other moments or comparing to other ideas of other moments. So the more someone can be mindful in even in activities such as eating, or the less we can engage in trying to compare our own life with someone we consider more fortunate than our own. All these practices lead to a greater sense of enjoyment, a greater, like I heard drawn out, a greater human experience. That there's something to, like I've heard, being in our life and our moments as if they're solitary expression and the only expression that really we should probably be with at that time.
I love that, brother. It circles around this idea of, St. Francis saying, do few things and do them well. Another interpretation I like of that is fully be in what you are doing. And you're right. Oh, you ever notice how if we're not fully present in what we're doing, then the end result kind of comes out fragmented and muddled and loose ends hanging everywhere. And have you ever noticed in those times where we're not fully present, oh my God, it's like our mind is so many other places, it's like we are multitasking, therefore not fully giving that thing that we're doing the energy it deserves. And usually then that's affecting others. Because most things we're doing here, whatever it may be, involves our relations. Oftentimes. Now, there are obviously things that don't, but it's always curious to me how that lack of awareness or mindfulness never produces a focused end result. And we were just talking about this in the technology of sacred ceremony and keeping a focused intention, acting as if it is already so. How do these things happen? Mindfulness, keeping that which we are doing solitary, which I like how you draw that out. Keeping it what it is on its own, no additions, nothing added, nothing needing to be taken away, what it is, as it is, on its own. Very powerful. Well, perhaps this is a good time to pause until another time. I pray you walk as solitary as elect, entering the door, walking in the I am, the way, the truth, and the unique life display given to you. And may you carry the space of sanctuary out into the people and the land, bringing peace. My love to you. May Ariel Adonai go with you. Zachor Shalom.
Remember
peace.
peace. Remember peace.
Remember peace.